Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I'm very excited tonight because we have with us tonight a man who was a referee in World Championship Wrestling from the early 90s through the Nitro years, has a number of very, very interesting experiences to share. And this is actually the first long form interview that he has agreed to do. And I can't wait to get into it with him, being a WCW fan myself. And I would be talking about Mr. Randy Eller. How are you, sir?
Very well. Thank you for having me, Jack. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time tonight. And I think it's always good as a baseline for the fans to know, how did you get drawn into the crazy world of professional wrestling, and specifically your role as a referee?
Well, it all started back in the early 70s. My father taking me to the local armory here we have in town. And I always watched Stu Schwartz. He was a referee for Florida Championship Wrestling at the time. And I just always knew there was more to his job than what I could see. And something intrigued me into that, and I always wanted to do it. And lo and behold, I got to live the dream.
In terms of that early exposure to the territory, were there any particular wrestlers that inspired you or piqued your interest in the business? Did you get to interact with any of them?
Never did. I was an East Coast guy, and they were all based out of Tampa. So it was about a 3-hour drive for me, and being a little kid back in the 70s, of course, I didn't have access to that. So I had Saturday TVs, and when they'd come to our town, maybe once a month, I would always be there and just loved it.
So you had this foundational experience as a child. What was there a moment or a sequence of events that fell into place that gave you the notion that you wanted to pursue a role in the business? And if so, could you describe that for us, please?
Well, I knew I always wanted to be in it. Like I said, since a 10-year-old kid, I always just knew if there was some way I could get my foot in the door, I was going to kick it in. But I just, like I said, I was so far from Tampa, I definitely didn't have the opportunity to go there. So a friend of mine had a wrestling school here in town, and I just drove by one night and pulled in the driveway. And I think it was 6 months after that, I was doing TV, and the rest was history.
Wow. Can you talk about what your training process entailed, and specifically around the issue back in the day when kayfabe was very much still a factor? How you were smartened up to the business?
Training was very hard back in those days. As kids today, they don't realize how good they have it made. I had to take all of the bumps. I had to do everything the wrestlers did. I didn't get cut no slack, and I had no intention of being a wrestler. I either wanted to be a referee or a manager, and they're like, no, you're going to learn to do this first. So they made me go through it all before I was ever smartened up and any idea of what was going on.
In those early months of your training, did you ever, because we've heard that a lot, and I think there's a correlation between, old school fans who regard the business as, much more realistic and enjoyable, for lack of a better term, and how rigorous the training process was. Was there ever a spot when you were engaged in that you thought, holy cow, what have I got into?
Oh, absolutely. There was. It's WCW, as a matter of fact. I had to take the elbow from Randy Savage off the top rope one night.
Oh, my goodness. Tell us about that.
Excuse me?
Tell us about that, please. We'll get into WCW, of course, but that sounds interesting.
Yeah, we were working. It was the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach. And God bless Randy Savage. Loved him to death. But this night, we'd been setting it up for a while to where I had to take the elbow off from him off the top rope. And I was a little nervous. A lot of guys telling me this, other guys telling me that. So I didn't know exactly which way to go with it. And Terry Taylor, he was backstage at the time, and he kept asking me, "Hey, kid, you nervous? You nervous?" And I'm like, "I'm going to be all right. It's going to be okay." And we glance over, and Randy's over there drinking. He had a 12-pack of Miller Lite.
That's got to build your confidence, right?
Especially when that whole 12-pack was going before we hit the curtain. Absolutely, it did. But Terry Taylor did give me the notion to tell me, "Don't worry, kid. The more beers you drinks, the lighter it's going to be on you." And Terry, thank you for giving me that information.
So we've heard actually anecdotally from some wrestlers that Randy could drop that quite stiffly and hurt himself sometimes and his opponent. It went smoothly for you, I take it?
It went very smooth. To this day, he still owes me a case of beer for that, he said.
That's tremendous. How was that explained to you that that spot was going to go? Like, what was your thought when you found out that, which is unusual? Well, back in that day, especially for a ref to get involved physically in a situation. How was that laid out for you? And did you ever go like, my goodness, what am I going to do here?
Well, like I said, I could see it coming for weeks beforehand. The way it was setting up, everything was coming. We had done a few little spots here and there before then. And I never knew until maybe an hour before we were going to do it exactly what was going to happen. So I was a little nervous, but everything went very well, and he treated me very good.
Excellent. Back it up a bit to the point that you've completed your training. You're working some independent companies. I take it. How did WCW come into the picture for you? What was the sequence of events that put you into contact with them?
WCW was coming to Orlando at the time. They were doing some tapings at Disney or Universal, either one. I can't remember at the time. And they needed a ref. And supposedly I was one of the best refs in Florida. Don't hate to toot my own horn, but toot toot. And they got in touch with the promoter, Bill Brown, who was a very good friend of mine down South Florida here. And he recommended me. So they gave me a call, told me you get a one-day tryout. If we like you, you get called back. If we don't like you, you get your one day in the sun. So I had my tryout, and they called me back from a few times after.
Awesome. Morris Shorthall, Mr. Cheap Heat himself, is asking about if you have any friends, any story about the friend of the show, Chris Nelson, any stories about him?
We were doing a taping in Orlando. He was working Vader for probably the 500-600th time, it seemed like. And Vader took some liberties on my friend at the time, and he hurt him. And Chris looked up at me in the ring, and he asked for help. He needed help out of the ring. And at the moment, I kind of thought it was Chris ribbing me, and I blew him off. And I wish I wouldn't have done that now, looking back on it. So my apologies to you, classic Chris.
Did you ever work any, because we've heard that before from a lot of people, WCW talents at the time. Did you ever have any interactions with Vader yourself of a negative nature, or were you privy to any other matches where he went overly stiff, so to speak?
Vader, he always worked stiff, but thank God him and I, we never had a problem at all. We always got along very well.
Excellent.
I didn't have too many problems. Only one guy I had a problem with, and he was a former ref himself.
Are you at liberty to talk about that?
Jerry Sags.
What did he do?
We were working a match. I was at their match. It was a Nasty Boys in Harlem Heat. And we was getting ready to go through the curtain, and Sags looked at me and told me, "Hey, kid, if you mess this match up, I'm going to beat you." And I'm like, I I don't think I'm going to mess it up. So I get ready to go out the curtain, and somebody told me, "Hey, kid, don't worry. He's going to mess it up on his own." And sure enough, he did.
Was that something that you were, and we're going to get into this too in terms of the role of the referee back then, but did you ever get pressure from the wrestlers in terms of the match being laid out and overly emphasizing how they wanted it to go in conflict with how you understood the match was supposed to go?
No. I never had no problems with anything. I just got my finish, and everything always went well for me, I hope.
Do you know what SAG's motivation was at that time then?
Some reason I just don't think Sags liked me. I mean, I never did nothing to him. I knew he broke in as a ref. I respected him for that, but Sags, some reason he didn't like me because I guess I was the new kid on the block, and he felt I was the one to take the liberties on.
Mm-hmm. We've heard that before about the Nasty Boys being somewhat bullies. This is a question that I'm always interested in. I recently had the opportunity to interview Jimmy Corderas, and I asked him the same question. But when you were doing that job then, what qualities did you consider or was conveyed to you to be essential to be an effective referee in a big company? And how do you feel about some of the referees in the modern era that seem to make themselves the center of attention in a match? And I'm speaking specifically about one in AEW that everybody knows about, that I personally can't stand when watching those matches.
You don't like the pose?
No. No. Not at all.
No, we were always told, stay out of the camera. It's not about us. We get our moment in the sun when we raise our hand. Mm-hmm. So stay out of the camera, do a good job, and you're all right. Don't be seen. You're not what they're paying to see. Mm-hmm. And I agree wholeheartedly with you about that one AEW ref as well. Actually, mm-hmm. It's more than one there, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The fact seems to be that philosophy, and Earl Hebner has said the same thing, and all the great referees of yesteryear, that they seem to have forgotten the fact that they're not to be pulling attention away from the wrestlers or the matches themselves. And it seems to me that, well, I think that one referee actually wrestled a match too. That's got to be contrary to an effective running of a match. Don't you agree?
I agree 100% on that. 100%. The only ref that could pull that off is Charles Robinson.
Yes, which we'll definitely talk about. And Tommy Young had his moments, but never to that extreme degree.
Exactly.
When we're talking about your time frame in WCW, that was, coincidentally, during the period of time that Eric Bischoff went from a self-proclaimed third string announcer or a potted plant to this executive vice president, et cetera, et cetera. Did you ever have any personal interactions with Mr. Bischoff?
I only had maybe 2 or 3 personal interactions with him. One was in a meeting, of course, with all of us, and then one night we was in Baltimore. It was a house show, and it was Lex Luger and Johnny B. Bad. Lex Luger was the U.S. champion at the time, and Johnny B. Bad, Mark Mayer, whoever, rolled him up in a schoolboy, and I'm hitting 1, 2, and I'm like, this isn't the finish. I'm telling Lex, hey, get it up. And Lex didn't get it up, so I hit 3. Mm. And of course, we got a new U.S. champion all of a sudden, which we wasn't supposed to have. And I'm the first one behind the curtain. So Mr. Bischoff was there to greet me not too kindly. And thank God Lex was right behind me. And Lex is like, that was every bit on me, wasn't it? So we rolled it back the next night. So no harm, no foul. But that was my main interaction with Mr. Bischoff.
That was something that correct me if I'm wrong, that you would have been taught to count it in those situations when that's not the finish, but something's going wrong because of the fact that, in order to make it look like a contest, if somebody had their shoulders down, if it wasn't the right competitor to win, that you would count through that, correct?
Correct. But I was always taught you count no matter what. And I always make sure when I do my counts, it's as close to your ear as I can get it. And I'm as loud and vocal as I can be, to where you don't have an excuse for not hearing my count or me. Especially when I'm saying, get it up, get it up.
Was that what Luger was saying? He wasn't able to, because he would have known the finish, correct?
Correct. Luger, he just said he had a brain fart at the moment and drew a blank. He forgot to do it. Lift his shoulder.
Well,
was ever bet on Luger, and he manned up and took the credit for it.
You did absolutely the right thing. I'm not sure if you've seen the current Vice series that's talking about who killed WCW, and of course we'll go into a little bit more in terms of the breadth of your career. But have you seen the first episode? I believe the second episode is this week. And do you have any opinion on why the company ultimately at the end wasn't successful?
I haven't seen it yet personally, not myself, but as far as why the company went broke or out of business, I did see a lot of big dollar contracts handed out, and then I wouldn't see the guys but maybe 2 or 3 times in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that don't help none by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I personally witnessed one of those.
Which would have been whom?
I really don't want to say the name right now.
Okay, what wasn't Lanny Poffo, correct?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No. Yeah. This was a big star at the time. They had just came in, and they had a lot of stroke going on at the moment, and I saw it get used to full extent.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be a good segue to ask you one of the questions that I have in terms of you being there in the early to mid 90s and into the Nitro era. You would have been there when Hulk Hogan signed. Do you remember the atmosphere in the company when that happened? And do you have any interactions with Mr. Hogan that you can relate?
Yes, Hogan always treated me very well. He beat me up with a steel chair. I believe it was in Salem, Virginia. Yeah, I believe it was. That's when he was first starting to turn the angle on to go heel, of course. And then, of course, I was there at Bash at the Beach the night that happened. And speaking of another interaction with Mr. Bischoff, the night of Bash at the Beach, that was before cell phones and stuff back in them days. And when you pull into the Ocean Center in Daytona, there was a big roll-up gate for the trucks, everything could pull in. And then there was a payphone on the wall right there. And the locker rooms was back behind the payphone. Well, I was on the payphone calling my girlfriend at the time, but I'm at the building, everything's good, just checking in. And at that time, the door opened and the big limousine rolled in. And it was Hogan jumping out. Well, Mr. Bischoff saw me on the payphone. Of course, he thought I was talking to the dirt sheets. So he come running over there as fast as he could and wanted to know who I was talking to. So Mr. Bischoff did get to tell my girlfriend at the time, hello.
That's tremendous. Before the days of cell phones. So you were in the building during that very historic pay-per-view and encounter. What was before we get you to reiterate any Hogan interactions that you had? What was the atmosphere? Was it known amongst the rank and file of the company that something big was gonna happen here?
We all knew. I mean, it wasn't said, but everybody knew. I mean, we knew. We knew.
When the actual the way and I've also talked to Kevin Sullivan about this. He claims up and down that it was almost a game day or a momentary decision. He had to sequester Hogan, and Hogan was, vacillating back and forth right up until the moment that it happened. But when the turn occurred, do you remember if that was a shock, or was it just the elation at how big the angle got over, given the concern that Hogan being, the quintessential baby face for so long, it might not get over?
No, everybody knew that was going to work. I mean, but yes, because like you said, at the time that limo pulled in, it was almost getting close to showtime.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could see where Hogan was going back and forth on it. Definitely could see that.
Do you have any noteworthy? Can you talk a little bit more about the chair deal that you touched on, and anything else that you had around Hogan?
Like I said, that was up in Salem, Virginia. That should be on a Monday Nitro, I do believe, that we did this. I believe it was right after World War III or something, maybe. That was really about my only interactions with Hogan, I do believe. But he always treated me very nice, very kind.
One of the individuals that of course, when you think of WCW, you can't separate their legacy from the company is Ric Flair. And I understand you were involved in a world title match, and actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was Sting, and you presented the world title to Flair. Can you talk about that situation and any other interactions that you had with the Nature Boy?
It was Ric Flair and Randy Savage in a steel cage.
Okay.
Super Brawl 6.
Okay.
And see, Flair had Woman at the time, and Savage had Elizabeth, I do believe. And that's when Elizabeth turned heel. And they did the shoe, heel in the eye to Savage. And Flair won the strap. That was his 13th time of handing Flair the world belt. But Flair always treated me so good. I love that man to death. He always took such good care of me. Always. He picked me to ref that night even.
He took you where?
He picked me to be the ref that night.
Oh, he picked you. Oh, excellent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they was a little worried. I think Jody could kind of see that I was still a little green at the time. And they was looking for somebody else to do it, someone else. And Pee Wee had the main event that night. Nick was in the ring, and Jimmy Jet could not be found. And Flair looked at me and said, "That's going to be the ref right there." So I love Flair for that. He always took such good care of me. Even in that match he did.
What an honor. Ibzan is asking if, which I'm assuming you have, if you've ever seen Haku in action. I'm not sure whether he's referring to in the ring or out.
In the ring many times. Outside of the ring, never. Safest car ride I was ever in, one time. I was in the back seat. Haku was in the front seat passenger. Barbarian was driving. I was hoping someone would carjack us. Try to.
Boy, that would be a huge mistake.
Yes, it would.
A huge mistake. A fan on social media wanted to know if you have any memories or interactions with the rise of Bill Goldberg and that incredible streak leading to the match with Hogan in the Georgia Dome.
I do not. I left right before Goldberg came. I was done before he got there. So I never got to work with Goldberg.
In terms of there were a lot of notable referees in WCW, and just to get your impressions on some of them, whether you were there or not. What were your thoughts when Nick Patrick became part of that NWO storyline and his profile seemed to elevate?
I was glad for Nick. Nick, from the day I got there, Nick took me in like a brother. I used to stay at Nick's house. I am so glad for Nick. He deserved everything he got. Loved Nick.
you know, a lot of people have talked about referee Mark Curtis, the late referee Mark Curtis, as being quite a river. Did you ever experience any of those with him?
No, I did not. He came in right after I left is when he started. So I miss working with Brian as well.
Gotcha. One of the greats.
Yep.
Isban is asking again if he's asking how the Disney TV tapings were for you, and anything stick out during that 94 run.
Those were fun times. All of the Disneys, the Universals, those was all great times. But yeah, that was some very fun times there. Sticks out the most probably the night Kevin Nash darted Rey Mysterio into the trailer.
You were there during that whole thing. Can you talk about the atmosphere there? Because from what I understand, the police were legitimately called when that stuff was going on outside.
Oh, I could see them being called, absolutely. Except it was right there for the fans. Everybody could see it. I mean, everything was kind of like in the open there. There was had the trailers back there. And yeah, that was some really fun times. The guys, everybody there, just seemed like we were all having fun at the time. It was like a big vacation while everybody was working.
Mm-hmm. And that particular incident with the dart into the trailer, that was some pretty groundbreaking stuff, which leads me to another fan question about dealing with or working with, especially during that really seminal period when the Outsiders, Hall and Nash, first came into the company. Do you have any stories about working with them?
Not those guys. They were always good to me as well. Mm-hmm. Always good. Never. I don't think I ever worked any of their matches, though. To tell you the truth, I can't recall being in the ring with Hall or Nash.
Was there a sense in the company that that was their introduction to WCW was going to be a game changer, so to speak?
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of people liked it, I do believe. But I do think there was a lot of guys that kind of had a lot of resentment for what was going on as well.
Because of the contractual situation, the guaranteed money?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Now, in the larger sense, WCW, unlike WWE at the time, with a couple of notable exceptions, but especially in the 90s, they seem to put a spotlight on certain referees. We've talked about Nick Patrick, Mark Curtis, and Charles Robinson. When you were part of that crew, was there ever any sort of competition or jealousy in terms of who got the positions and the camera time, etc.?
I would like to think not. I mean, the time I was there, it was mostly me, Nick, and Pee Wee. And Jody, he wrote everything down, and I don't think nobody ever had a problem with any of it. And then Jimmy Jett, he would come in and help a lot. But no, I don't think nobody ever had no problems with anything. Nobody was greedy or nothing there. We were all good.
Did you work with Charles Robinson at all, and did you follow his career into WWE?
I did follow Charles because I think he's a great ref, but no, I've never had the pleasure of meeting him as well.
Mm-hmm. When you look back in terms of how you were trained and the role of the role of the referee was and still is a central one to the wrestling product. Do you understand why or how that has changed over the years and wrestling becoming less of a house show product and more of a television product? Are there any ways that the role has morphed over the years that stick out for you?
I wish it could go back to the old days to where the wrestlers could call it in the ring and the referee would give them the finish in the ring. Mm. I mean, it was just so much better back in those days when you could make them believe. Now you go out there and everything's just too choreographed. And you miss one spot and then everybody's lost. Even the refs half the time get lost when they see something missed. And that's why if I'm a ref, I don't need to hear your whole match. Just tell me to finish and we're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, calling it in the ring is definitely a lost art.
Very.
Ibzan is asking again if you had any interactions with Steve Austin back then. Did you ref his matches and did you see his potential?
I did not get to work with Steve. He'd already left for the Fed or whatever you call it by the time I'd got there, but you could definitely see the potential from day one with that man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why was it that you left WCW, and did you ever look at going up to New York?
It was just time to go. I guess like it wore out, whatever you want to call it there. And I did get a tryout with WWF. I went there one night. I could see because I broke in with Billy Gunn. We all broke in together and all at the time. And that's when he was a member of the Clique.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that if I would have went to the Fed, which I think I did very good at my tryout because they was putting a very good word in for me. Actually, I had like 5 guys putting a word in for me there. But I just saw myself getting in too much trouble being there. So as soon as I got done with my match, I hit the door and took off and never looked back. I went to work for ECW instead.
Oh, okay. Well, 2-part question. What do you mean trouble? And can you talk about ECW then too?
Oh, back in those days, those Somas was running wild in the business. I'm sure everybody remembers those days and stuff. So I went back in the locker room, and like I said, I saw a lot of the guys and could see a lot of trouble if I would have stuck around probably coming up. Mm-hmm. So I took the high road on that. Mm-hmm. And then I went, I was good friends with Rob Van Dam as well. And Rob got me in, so I took all of their Florida shots at the time. And I always loved working for them. Never had a problem, never got a bad check. Everything was great.
How was your relationship with Paul Heyman?
I loved Paul. Paul, he would always just look at me with his face laughing and smiling, and off I'd go do my thing and get a check at the end of the night. Everything was good.
And you touched on some of the issues with the WWF locker room at the time. What was it was
WCW as well now. That's where
Absolutely.
They started.
Yeah,
that's where they started.
Fair point. What was the absolute wildest ECW locker room story that you can recall?
Nothing really wild in ECW. Believe it or not, I mean, it was just a bunch of pot-smoking guys, really.
Morris is asking, did you ever have a smoke with Rob Van Dam? I think I probably know the answer to that.
Many times.
Were you ever surprised that he segued his love of cannabis into the overarching business ventures that he's been involved in? I think he's still involved to this day in a couple of companies.
Oh, yes, he is. But I'm glad that he did that. And I wish more people would have done that back earlier. I mean, because it helps the body tremendously, believe it or not. And it's something nature made, and I'm all for it.
How long in total did you spend with ECW?
ECW, like I said, I just did their Florida shots was all, and I was probably there from 97 to 98, I would say. Maybe 99.
That was during some noteworthy matches in ECW history, including a pretty infamous one where Sandman was in various condition other than normal, etc. Do you remember that particular show where Sandman was in that state, or do you have any general Sandman stories?
Hack was always great, man. Good guy. Just loved his beer.
and then some. Isben is asking again, did you learn under the Terry Funk tree? Was he giving advice to refs as well as the wrestlers in ECW?
Funk never really gave any advice, but anytime Terry Funk would speak, I was all sponge.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter if he was just saying hello, I was going to absorb it.
Was there ever any consideration for you to work for the company in the other locations on the Northeast that they hit during that period of time?
No, at the time I was good just working Florida spots for them because I had my own independence going as well. So I was doing very good back in them times.
What was the reason why you hung up the stripes, so to speak, entirely? Whenever that was.
I'm still not done.
Okay, great.
I ain't saying I'm still working Boca Raton Championship Wrestling here in Florida. CCW. Heck, I work for a few companies down here in Florida still.
Do you still have that love of the business that you had when you first started? Because I know it can some people become bitter, especially after a long tenure in the industry.
No bitterness here whatsoever. I am I'm just so blessed to be able to do what I did. And no, there's no bitterness. The only thing that's going to be bitter is the day that I finally do have to walk away. It's be a sad, not bitter, bitter sadness.
Mm-hmm.
But I've lived the dream.
Up until now, notwithstanding the fact that you're still active, if you had to boil it down, I got a two-part question. What would be the most salient piece of advice that you could give to someone that was looking to break in as a referee? I'll ask you to answer that first.
Someone looking to break in. Be all ears. Keep your mouth closed and listen. There's a reason the Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen, listen, listen. If you're going to do a job, do it the best you can. Doesn't matter what it is. Be the best at anything you can be. Stay loyal, stay humble, and you'll find your way.
That's definitely good advice for any business. Morris is asking, before I ask you part B, did you have any encounters with Chris Benoit?
Chris Benoit, he was a great guy to me. Me and Chris, we got along so well. Loved Chris. Nothing bad to say about Chris Benoit.
Very professional in the ring with everyone, from what I understand.
Very, such an excellent worker. Such an excellent worker.
So my final question is this. If you could pick a particular highlight or an accomplishment of your career that you're most proud of, Randy, what would that be?
Hands down, maybe not hands down, but handing Ric Flair the world title for his 13th time.